Hi again, folks. Right, I'm sat on my boat here, trying to self-isolate at the moment for a couple of hours out of the way of this damn virus that's knocking the whole world around at the minute. So that was part of the reason that I wanted to do this thing and try and entertain people a little bit. Um, Anyway, in the third episode, last one, I was talking about the test that we did at Silverstone, and then we'd started out to get to my first race, which was the French Grand Prix. So anyway, we've headed down the road. We've got to France, and we get down to the Paul Ricard circuit. And for those that sort of don't know how a race weekend works, really. I mean, in general, all the teams used to get there sort of on a Tuesday stroke Wednesday. You'd wash all the trucks off on Wednesday afternoon, get the awning set up, get all your work areas set up. This was with Goodyear anyway, because all the teams obviously used to, they'd get set up in their garages, but the Goodyear trucks, there would be probably four of us. You'd have what was essentially the workshop area, so that would be set up under an awning with all the tyre fitting equipment. Then you'd have another truck that had all the balancing equipment on. So, and then another couple of trucks which were essentially mobile stores. So what used to happen was all of the teams, once they'd got all the garages set up and everything like that, every team had a wheelman, and it was his job basically to look after all of the tyres for the team. And in general, a lot of these guys were the truckies as well. So I think these days a lot of the F1 teams, they would have anything up to what you would call garage technicians. They've got hundreds of the bloody people these days. But in general, back then, you'd probably have four of us. You'd have two guys per truck, and one of those would be your tyre technician, and the other guys they would be like garage setup fellas, fuel men and everything. And we sort of had to do lots of different tasks. But anyway, with Goodyear, we'd set up the work area on a Wednesday afternoon, and then you'd be off, and all the wheelmen would bring all the bare rims over to the awning, and you'd start work pretty well Thursday morning. And it was quite sometimes it could be a bit hectic, but in general you just work through the day. And each team would be allocated, I don't know, maybe 10 sets of tyres each or something. But you'd got the likes of, as I remember, and this is really off the top of my head now, the Goodyear runners would be Williams, McLaren, Ferrari, Zach Speed. Who else would there be? Arrows. I'd have to really have a look at what the others were. But then you'd got the teams that were running Pirelli tyres, which I think back in '86 were the teams like Brabham, Benetton. Anyway, teams like that. Another Goodyear runner was Tyrrell. So anyway, all the fellas would bring over the wheels. You'd be fitting the tyres up. So you'd have two guys working on the fitting tables. You'd have another couple of guys inflating the tyres. You'd have another couple of guys who were doing all the balancing, and that's how we went on. Physically, it was quite hard work. One of the things that we did as well with Goodyear was, because obviously Goodyear was such a big global organisation in comparison to some of the teams. We used to be pretty well on factory hours at the circuit. Now, that meant that back at the factory in Wolverhampton, they'd work sort of 8 till 4:30 or something like that. Well, we used to be on the same hours, and we used to work like stink to try and get finished by 4:30, because essentially after that we were on overtime, and the company didn't really want to pay a load of overtime. It changed in later years because they had to sort of bend to how the teams and the engineers wanted to, because the race engineers, they never make their mind up. But we used to, Goodyear engineers used to fly in from America. We had one or two British engineers, but in general, the tyre engineers came from the factory in Akron, because they were the guys that designed all the composition of the tyres and everything like that. So they'd fly in every race. But yeah, I mean, we would work and get all these sets of tyres out ready for Friday morning's free practice. But we were out of the place at 4:30, while all the rest of the teams were, putting cars together and all the rest of it. We got our briefcases in our hand and we were off, and probably by 10 to 5 we were in some pub somewhere. And the Goodyear lads, there were some rum boys amongst them. There were some great fellas, but we worked hard. But my God, they were thirsty. They were incredibly thirsty, and so depending on where our hotel was. To be fair, I mean, Goodyear, we generally found we had good accommodation, not too far from the circuit. So we'd get back, quick wash and brush up, because you weren't supposed to be out drinking in your team gear. It was a bit frowned on, that was. But and then we'd be out on the town. We'd go and have something to eat. I seem to remember we had expenses, we had per diem expenses, which was sort of like 20 quid a day, something like that. Well, you'd go and find a burger for £1, and that meant you got 19 quid for your beer. And not always the greatest way of doing things, but that was how it was. But so the next day we'd, you come into the circuit at 7:30 on a Friday or something, and the cars would be running from, what was it now? I'm trying to think now. Was it 10:30 till 12? I think they had an hour and a half free practice. Then you got an hour to get everything else sorted out. No, was it 10 till 11:30? Anyway, whatever it was. But qualifying was 1 till 2. So you'd have qualifying on the Friday to find essentially like a provisional pole position. So your fastest driver would be on provisional pole overnight. You do the same on Saturday, and practice for an hour and a half, and then an hour's qualifying session, and then you found your pole man. And then after that, on sort of like a Saturday afternoon, it was reasonably quiet for the tyre guys, because we'd done all our work in the preceding couple of days. You'd get one or two teams come back and they would want to swap tyres onto different rims or anything like that, or they'd want the balance checked and that. But then what we did was we'd have periods of relative calm around the Goodyear thing, and we got an office on one of the trucks, and we used to sit in there, and people would just start to bugger about, and we had a bit of a silly thing that happened. It was called pass it on, and somebody would, I don't know, flick your nose. So the next guy sat to you got to flick his nose. So it would go round the chairs, the office, until it got to the end, and then somebody had to come and start doing something else. So then you would get a tweak of the ear. It'd go round. It'd go to the other one, and then somebody would say, "Okay, we're going to slap your head." or tweak your nipple or something stupid like that. But we started to try and get a bit inventive with it sometimes, and I think it might have been me who says, okay, one of these things, let's have a flick to the eye. So we had to flick somebody on the eyelid, and then they had to pass it on, and then when we get bored of that, somebody would just say, it's come sharp for them or something, and it's starting to a bit of a fight. Only arsing about really, but it's starting to a fight, and you had a bit of a pile on, and then the word would go out that it was time to put the sides on the awning and wrap it up for the day, and out of the circuit 4:30. Let's go and find a bar.